about I reckon before we kick into content, I just wanted to check in with you guys and um, just hear any wins, but also any challenges. So, should we just go through one at a time and just let me know if there are any challenges that you guys have experienced during the week, either that you haven't worked through yet or that you have. Go ahead and share them anyway. So should we start with you?
Yeah, I started to get quite a niggly gallbladder. I've had it before years and years ago, and I can recognise the pain. So I just put a hottie on it and went off the cheese, really.
Oh,
That's
good
about it.
work.
Yeah, and as soon as I knocked off the cheese, I didn't have any more pain. And also, like, my bowels had stopped, and then I had to add avocado and spinach. I absolutely had to because
Yeah.
I just can't take the laxative. So that worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. You got your bowels moving. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And overall your energy is feeling good?
Yeah, not too bad. I've got the sinus thing going back, so I'm on the antibiotics. So I'm just wondering how that will be. I started them tonight. I've been holding off because I didn't really want to go on them. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Amber.
Mm. So I just had a massive nap. I feel like today's been a strange day because yeah, my liver gallbladder has been quite sore today. But I talked to Taryn and so I've just chilled out today. But I did have a nap, so there must be something like happening for me to need a nap. But other than that, I've been amazing. I've loved it.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
did you get some reprieve today after you stretched out the eating time?
Nah, I didn't manage to get any, but I'm gonna have to see where I can get it from.
So so just to catch everyone else up so we're on the same page. So Amber was doing super well and feeling fantastic. And then today she felt like in her liver area she was feeling sore. And so we took a look at first of all what she was eating, and there was quite a lot of protein intake. And then also the fat intake is high. So sometimes the liver or the gallbladder just needs time to adjust to the fat and protein intake. Um, so Amber, what did you, so you ate this morning when I spoke to you, and then when was the next time you ate?
I haven't eaten again yet.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. All right. So have a look into ox bile salts.
Okay.
And also if you can get that homeopathic remedy, Nux vomica,
Yeah.
whichever one you can get first, really.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Marie, how'd you get?
I'm only on day 2.
Yeah.
Can you? I found it's not too bad. I found yesterday, sort of by the end of the day, I wasn't hungry, but I had like funny taste on my mouth and that. But today, heaps better. I have a wee bit of a headache, but I am still sort of probably getting over the flu and that. So my chest and yeah, no, not doing too bad. A bit behind everybody else.
Yeah, everyone's sort of taking their turn at getting sick at the minute.
Mhm.
I did. So what have you done, or what are you thinking you'll do to get rid of the taste in your mouth, or to like, is it that when you need something to sort of cleanse your palate after a meal?
Um, I wondered if it was the just getting used to what is it, the bio trace in my water, and
Oh,
maybe the cheese. I'm a wee bit funny, just with not really, um, um, yeah, just with the cheese. But I haven't been so bad today, and I had a fried egg instead of for my lunch and that.
okay,
So with a wee bit of
okay,
yeah.
okay. Um, Guys, is anyone using lactose-free cheese, or are you all just using regular cheese?
Regular.
I have lactose free.
Okay. I reckon if you don't do so well on dairy, if you are unaware, so maybe Amber, I actually didn't ask you how much cheese that you were taking in, but dairy is definitely the first thing to stop if you like until your body adjusts at the very least. But then if you were sensitive to dairy, then introducing lactose-free cheese first is the preference. Okay, but it sounds like you guys are going really well. Joy, I can't see you,
Oh,
but
sorry. Do you have to?
no, don't have to. No, my camera's not working, so I'm in no position.
Okay, thanks.
So, Joy, you just caught up on session 1 last night, so I don't suppose you've started.
No, you kind of made a comment in the video to have the to get a hold of those two supplements you mentioned.
Yep.
Before you start it.
Yep.
And to be honest, it's kind of seeing the food, it's very overwhelming because I don't eat meat.
Okay.
And haven't in a
Okay.
probably very long time.
Yeah, so you are in a similar boat to myself and Amber. So I was vegan for 4 years before I
Okay.
started eating this way, and Amber had only just started introducing meat into her diet very slowly. So we can definitely have a conversation about that. So I'll park that one for now because that can be a bigger one to sort of get your head around.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, that's totally fine. You did miss the first session and have caught up. So today we're gonna Anne Marie.
Hey.
Anne Marie, hey, how are you? How'd you get on this week? Any challenges?
I've got a challenge that I'm missing out on snacks. I just feel like I'm craving something in between meals. Something just a crunch, I guess. I want something, yeah. So that's
so are you missing out on it on purpose or because you think you need to, or can you just decide to eat something?
I can decide to eat something, I guess, but there's nothing that I actually want to eat because I feel like I've already had it during the day. I've had the meat, I've had the egg, I've had the cheese. So I'm thinking, I just fancy some peanuts or something.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean, especially at the beginning when your appetite hormones are regulating. So, what I did in the beginning is I would prepare my lunch more than what I thought I would have for lunch, so that if I need, and then I would split it and I would eat it throughout the day, so that so that I wasn't eating a whole meal. Like I would have as much as I needed to eat, and then if I felt like I needed to have something like a little snack, the idea is that you go for like that you preference meat or butter, something with butter. That's where cheese can be beneficial because it's predominantly fat based, because the body will be craving one of those two things. And so I do know what you're talking about, and that was a strategy that I used to mitigate it, was just to split my meals initially and until that went away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, guys, today what we're going to be going through is, let me go onto the page. Okay, so we're going to start off on leaky gut, then go through onto anti-nutrients, and then I'm just going to give you a quick strategy at the end, which will make sense when we get there. So I hope everyone's got a pen and paper, because I am going to ask you to just take, even if you use your phone, just to take note of a couple of things. So we've talked about leaky gut already, and I asked you if you thought your gut was leaky, if you knew your gut was leaky. And so what I want you to do is, as I go through the next 3 lists, I just want you to write down which of the ones from this list that you have.
I just need to go get a pen, sorry.
all right.
Yeah, I have to do the same actually.
It's okay. I'll give you guys a minute.
Thank you.
Got the last week, but you videoed it, so I thought, oh, okay, you'll do the same this week.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go back through the replay and write them down at the beginning, but I will ask you for them. So if you can write them down now or at that stage. I'm going to flick on to the next page. Is anyone still needing more time on this page?
No.
No.
Anne Marie?
No, I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay, Joy?
Yeah, I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. This page here.
What do you mean by neurological disorders?
Like ADHD, something like that. Something like,
Okay.
yeah.
But diagnosed, not self-diagnosed.
Yeah, unless you've got sufficient evidence to self-diagnose.
Okay.
All right, anyone need more time on that page?
No.
Not
Okay,
now.
cool. All right, this one's a bit bigger. Anyone need more time?
No, I'm good now.
Okay.
Okay.
Just give me an idea. Did anyone get more than 4?
Out of just this one list?
No, on all 3 lists combined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All
Why
right.
didn't you get more than that?
More than 6?
A lot more than 6, yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Cool. Just wanted to check in and see like to what degree that we are leaking. So okay. So the causes of leaky gut are really it's actually quite a debatable issue across the conversation across the medical and the medical field. People don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. And it's the complexity of the gut is what makes it difficult for the medical field to draw hard and fast lines on causes, the direct links between diseases and leaky gut. And while there are a lot of correlations that have been conclusively drawn about certain diseases, in the holistic space, natural practitioners will tell you conclusively, like with certainty anyway, that at a certain amount of level of symptoms the body is experiencing, it's almost certain that the gut is leaking. And even if it wasn't, if it was a really awful case of dysbiosis or an imbalance of the gut's bacteria, you would still treat it in the same way. It's just the time that it would take to treat, to heal, that would differ. So these are your causes, which is why it is so common, right? Because we're living in 2024. There's not a lot that we can do about some of these things. Like, for example, stresses, while they're very a real contributor, for some, in some of those cases, they're out of our control, or not as much in control as other things, like, for example, toxins or diet. But the great news is that out of all of the different contributors to causes, making a change to diet is such a big lever that we can pull on to contribute to healing. So if a person suspected that they had leaky gut, then the kinds of foods that they are wanting to avoid are these kinds of foods. And so these are the kinds of foods that we hear about in other elimination based kinds of diets, like, for example, the GAPS diet and so on. So, you know, it's common for people to hear about nightshades as being triggers, gluten as being a trigger. But one of the things that I want to talk about tonight is about anti-nutrients. So is anyone familiar with that term, anti-nutrients?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I found this quite interesting because there's quite a the very first time I heard about this carnivorous based diet, it seemed very fatty to me. And it wasn't until I looked into it further and talked to some other health professionals about it that, you know, there were a lot of professionals, more so some that I've met here, but more so who I've been in dialogue with overseas, that are using it as forms of treatment. And I was like, interesting, there must be some really hardcore facts about what is actually going on in the body, some of which you've heard already. But anti-nutrients is a thing. And so we're not just talking about foods that are that don't have a lot of nutritional value, or where foods have been depleted of their nutritional value, but we're actually talking about foods that are harmful. Okay, so anti-nutrients. And so all so anti-nutrients are there are many of them. And I've just decided to focus on these three tonight because I thought that these are the three most impactful out of the ones that I saw. And so we're talking about lectins, oxalates, and phytic acids. So has anyone heard of any of these three things?
Yeah, oxalates. Yeah.
Oxalates, yeah. So I had been asked about oxalates many times before, and to me it sounded very interesting, but I didn't put a lot of importance on it until I saw it under the category of anti-nutrient, and that kind of sparked my interest. So all anti-nutrients are a problem if there's a problem with the gut. Okay, so if there's any kind of autoimmune issue, any kind of digestive imbalance, and most especially if the gut is leaky, then anti-nutrients are more of a problem for you than for someone who doesn't fall into that category. I'm just gonna let Jasmine in. So the reason that we're going to put focus and attention on anti-nutrients tonight is not because we want to oppose vegetables, for example, or fruits or plant-based foods, because it's not about that at all. What it is about understanding when you're in a phase of healing, what are the things that are causing you harm and what are the things that are moving you towards wellness. Okay, so when we use an elimination-based diet like this one, the intention is to get a baseline of health. And when I say baseline, I mean when we're symptom-free almost completely, if not completely. Okay, now that baseline of health gives us somewhere to go on. And this, by only focusing on animal-based products to get your baseline, then when we start to introduce or reintroduce other foods into our diet, what it does is it allows us to evaluate whether those foods are causing harm or whether they can be tolerated, or whether and therefore whether we can actually get the nutritional value from those foods. Okay, So where's my mouse? All right. So most plants have anti-nutrients. Okay, so they're compounds that protect plants. So everything that lives has some kind of defense mechanism naturally, right? But plants don't have any other way to protect themselves from predators, but to produce these toxins, right, to defend themselves from being eaten. And so this is their defense mechanism. They're found in grains, legumes, beans, nuts, plant roots, vegetables, leaves, and fruits. So all the things that we have eliminated from our diet to date. And the biggest concern, though, about these anti-nutrients is that they're affecting the absorption of other nutrients from foods that you are eating at the same time. Okay, so we don't know how many nutrients are being lost from anti-nutrient foods because there's no real way to measure that, as it's going to differ from person to person. But the answer also lies in how they are prepared. Okay, so not all anti-nutrients are bad as long as they're consumed in moderation, and then also caveat, as long as they are not causing you harm. And so this is the reason why at this stage of the elimination, they are not in the diet currently. So the first one that I want to introduce are oxalates. So oxalates, or oxalic acid is a naturally occurring compound in plants. We actually produce them, okay? So they're found in veggies, fruits, nuts, and seeds, and they are also produced as a waste product by the human body. So we make oxalic acid. So we make it, it's endogenous, and it's also found in plants. So the body naturally makes them, and it's usually excreted in the urine. And then it's also part of the body's process of removing waste, and it helps the body maintain calcium homeostasis. So the reason that I chose to pick on this particular one is because it is actually in the health community, it is commonly talked about. And so when you focus on it, you'll notice how often it actually does come up, but also because nutrient robbing our inability to digest or absorb nutrients, calcium is such a big one. Like it's a real doozy, that one. And our bones get used as a what do you call it? Like a reserve tank for minerals that the body needs. And so your body will prefer to get nutrients from your food, right? Which is preference, and it'll go there first. But then whatever it's not getting from your food, your mineral stores will be pulled from your bones. Okay, and so it's really, really important that that we have this byproduct of the body's natural oxalates, because it's required to help maintain that calcium balance in the blood. But when there's an overproduction of it, and it becomes toxic in the body. So what actually happens is that it binds to minerals and causes a buildup of like salt clusters, right? So think kidney stones, okay? Because this is then what needs to pass through the kidneys, but they lodge themselves in the gut. And if you don't have the bacteria, if your balance of bacteria is out, and if the gut is leaky, then it's severely out, then that affects your ability to break down oxalates. Okay, so if you can't break them down, that's when they are turning to these stones, and are in themselves causing inflammation, and therefore harm directly to the cells of the gut wall. Okay, so now let's move on to lectins. All right, so lectins, they can interfere with nutrient digestion, but also absorption of those minerals again. So namely calcium, phosphorus. What's the one that lots of women are deficient in? Very, very common. and children iron, phosphorus, and also zinc. Okay, so they are classic for surviving in the gastrointestinal tract. And the issue is that they cause damage to the line. So when it says epithelial, so that is the lining of your digestive tract, and the membrane lining. Now, the membrane lining is this mucosal lining of the gut, which plays quite a key role in immunity. Okay, so that mucosal lining is like a barrier. And when that mucosal lining starts to lose integrity, it then contributes to permeability. Okay, so lectins are a killer for damaging gut lining, and then also the bacterial flora, and then in themselves causing inflammation because they're directly triggering autoimmune reactions. Okay, so phytic acid. So phytic acid is found in whole grains. It's found in legumes, seeds, some nuts. It also can decrease the absorption of iron as well, and zinc, magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus. And so what I've done, guys, is I've put together a document which I'm going to put into the group as something that you can draw on as a resource, where it references studies. So if you are that way inclined and you want to go through and read the studies, you want to have a look at charts and things like that, I'm going to put those in there for you too. But super interesting in terms of the effect that it has on robbing us of the actual nutrients from our foods. So there may be a food that is high in a certain mineral, but our ability to absorb that is impaired. And anti-nutrients are the issue, or play a big role in that. Okay, so I took this from a direct quote from one of the documents that I've shared with you. So it not only grabs onto minerals, but it also inhibits enzymes that we need to digest our food, including pepsin needed for the breakdown of proteins in the stomach, and amylase needed for the breakdown of starch into sugar. So this is a big issue when it comes to protein absorption. Okay, so being able to break down the protein and benefit from it is an issue. So the next one I pulled was, in general, humans do not produce enough phytase. So that is the compound that you naturally produce to safely consume large quantities of high phytate foods on a regular basis. The probiotic lactobacilli and other species of the digestive bacteria can produce phytase. So that's good. So when we have a healthy gut flora and the balance or the ratio of good to bad bacteria is in balance, then it means that we're producing phytase and we can break down phytic acid. Okay, so this is why when someone is able to tolerate these things, like for example, my husband tolerates these foods really well. He's got the constitution of a bloody ox. Very, very good genes, right the way through his family, actually. And his ability to deal with these is fantastic, and it makes sense because he's never had a problem with his gut bacteria. Okay, so it's not about with the fact that these foods are bad. It's about being aware of what the benefits are and the drawbacks are, and then putting strategies in place so that you have more benefit from them, and then evaluating how the body can tolerate them. Okay, so I will make sure that you guys can get access to those. So any questions so far on any of those three? They're pretty clear.
So all of those substances are present in plant foods, all those things. Obviously.
They are present in all plant foods.
We can't kind of identify which plants, or it's just everything.
So in this next part here, what to do, I'm going to be just introducing some strategies that you can use to lower them in your foods. Yeah. And then I also have put a chart together, which I'll put as a like I'll upload the slides from tonight so that you can have reference to them, which will give you a way to have a look at the most common vegetables that you like, so that you know what you're dealing with. But the other thing is you're going to be using these when you start to reintroduce these foods back into your body. And so this will help you to choose which are the ones that you're going to be reintroducing first. Okay. Okay. So what to do? So soaking and sprouting food. So we're all familiar. Have has anyone actually soaked or sprouted nuts and seeds before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
any of you do this on a regular basis?
I did. I was vegan for a long time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I would go in and out of phases of doing this, but to be quite honest, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to do it. And so I found that a lot of the time I didn't, just simply because it was, and obviously when I was vegan and eating only these kinds of foods, having to eat as often and as I needed to eat, for a family of 4, that's a lot of bloody sprouting and and soaking. Yeah. But also another strategy is to break up the foods that have anti-nutrients so that you're not consuming too many in a meal. Right. And then avoid grains and legumes. So it's no surprise, I hope, that grains and legumes are inflammatory. But one of the big ones is with the oats. So the amount of iron that gets robbed, and I have put a study for you guys to look at if oats is a real big part of your family, so that you're aware. It's quite common for kids to be iron deficient. It's very common for kids to be iron deficient, and oats can be such a big part of kids' diets.
That's a surprise.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the reason why I referenced to the study in there, as the results were quite conclusive. Okay. So when we soak our foods, it actually mimics the rain. So when we're soaking it, what we're doing is we're essentially tricking the plant into thinking it's raining. And so it comes out of itself, releases those phytic acids and starts to head into the sprout. Yeah. So that's why we soak. This is another one that I'll make available to you, but I mean, soaking almonds. So these are almost all overnight soaks. And then they need to sprout for 12 hours for almonds to reduce their anti-nutrients. Chickpeas need to sprout for 12 hours. Millet soaked for 5 to 7, sprouted for 12. Sesame seeds, bottom right, soaked for 8 hours and sprouted for 1 to 3 days. And then oats, just to the left of that, soaked for 6 hours but sprouted for 2 to 3 days. So it's a lot of preparation that needs to go into it to lowering the anti-nutrients in them. And so really, when you're evaluating introducing these foods back into your diet, you're really wanting to be making sure as well that moving forward from there, that the anti-nutrients are not contributing to you going back in the other direction.
Right.
Okay. Because remember that that diet, so seed oils, for example, seed oils and I checked, and thank the Lord there's none in hemp of those anti-nutrients, which is awesome. But a lot of the seed oils that get used for cooking with and so on, they are like they cause harm to the extent that they are actually in the category of what contributes to causation of leaky gut. Okay, and so we really are wanting to be mindful of where we when we're evaluating foods now and putting them on a scale, we're putting them on a scale of which are the foods that are where the nutritional value is very high and don't cause harm. And then to the other end of the scale of where it's not about whether the nutritional value of the food is high, but rather our ability to use those nutrients, and or are they more anti-nutrient kinds of foods. Okay, so this is a real measurable way of evaluating oxalates. So I actually shared this with a friend as soon as I learned about oxalates, because he literally just had a problem with kidney stones. But oxalates that are considered low in the diet are less than 50 milligrams, moderate 50 to 100 milligrams, and then high, which is obviously advised against for those with kidney risks. So this is an example of what would be considered low oxalate foods. Okay, so 100 grams would be approximately a half cup portion. A small to medium sized apple is about 100 grams. So we're really talking one small to average sized fruit would be 100 grams. Okay, so these are all considered low, right? Next week, we're going to be touching on fibers so that you have that as a reference point when you're introducing them. And fortunately, it's not, while there are a lot of foods on these lists, when we reintroduce them, we're only reintroducing them one at a time. So it's not overwhelming when you decide to introduce them. Okay, medium oxalate foods. All right, so we're more into your sweet potatoes, carrots, berries, raspberries, even chicken falls into there, which is one of the reasons why red meat is your favored meat. And then high oxalate foods, so your spinach, which is, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely went through a phase of blending a lot of spinach into a green smoothie. Yeah. Also kale. I was blending it, eating it, making kale chips. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many of those cruciferous vegetables that I was incorporating into my diet in order to move myself towards health.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on these so far? Any thoughts, comments? Okay. All right. So these are the things I want you to focus on. So more essential fats and essential proteins. So when you're figuring out what you want to eat, those are your two priorities. Less on carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are actually non-essential, right? They're essential when you don't have fats high enough in your diet, right? Because they will severely tax your body's endocrine system, so your hormones, amongst a bunch of other things. But provided that those fats are there, carbohydrates are non-essential. Don't worry too much about vegetables, because you can get nutrients more bioavailable from other foods, for example, fish, eggs, meat. So I know, Joy, this will be something that you are definitely considering. But is there anyone that is like, oh my gosh, this is actually like, this is blowing my mind. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Is that your hand up, Amber? Yeah. Yeah, I was really there too. And I think those of us who were vegetarian and even vegan for a time in life, it was quite yeah, that was quite confronting for me. So but at the end of the day, your body knows what it likes and it knows what it doesn't like, and it'll soon communicate that to you. Okay. So, guys, this is a strategy that really served me, that I wanted to introduce to you. because cravings are real. Most of the cravings that I actually go so far as to say is at the beginning, most of the cravings will be in your mind. But at some point, when your body switches over to running on fats as its primary source of fuel, the cravings that are in there are all in your mind, if any. Okay, so you'll remember what things taste like, and like for example, if you ever got the question, what would your last meal be on earth if you could eat anything you wanted, what would be your last meal? Now, 100% mine was hands down pizza. Yeah, it was a solid, no hesitation, right? So I still remember how that tastes. But in terms of cravings, I can tell you right now, from someone who has dieted since I was 18 years old, I have never been free from dieting until using this elimination-based diet. And I always understood the concept of that there is a freedom from food when your body is getting what it needs, and it communicates that to you in terms of knowing when to stop eating. All those things that sounded like this perfect world that no one ever really lived in unless they were a saint or a nutritionist. And but I have to say that is a place that is real, and it is so unbelievably freeing. Okay, but while I was in, and I still do sometimes use this strategy, because there will be times when I'm at an event, and there'll be, or like not even necessarily at an event, but when my husband cooked a baked banana cake, banana loaf for my children, and you have to be dead to not be able to smell how delicious hot baked banana loaf, chocolate chip loaf smells in the oven, right? And so this is the conversation that I would have, because when I'm negotiating with myself, if I tell myself I'm not going to do something, then I want to rebel against myself. It's kind of like how it is when we're parenting. Yeah. And so for me personally, the conversation that I would have is, if I still feel like eating cake after eating this, then I'm going to have some. And then if it passes, then there's no need to. And so if I felt like the thing, I wouldn't remove it from me as an option. The option was there. And I can tell you now, if I did still feel like eating that cake after I eat this, then I would have eaten that little bit of cake that I allowed myself. Okay. So if I still feel like having this leftover piece of pizza that my husband has left in the fridge, if I still feel like eating that in 10 minutes, then I'm going to have it. So it's putting strategies in place like that, where you allow yourself the opportunity, where you allow the craving an opportunity to pass. Okay. Quite often when we have cravings, it's stress, or it's loneliness, or it's boredom, or it's stress, or we're tired, or it's stress. Okay. So when those kinds of situations prop up, the awesome thing is that your resilience to those things, your resilience to stress improves dramatically. Your resilience to what was some of the other thing to hunger, for example, and because of the amount of non-anti-nutrient foods that you were eating, your body really is getting the nutrients that it needs, and so therefore the cravings do pass. Okay, so I want you to just write down a little, just write down if I then I'll to help remind you, and see if this would be a useful strategy for you to negotiate with yourself when you find yourself in a situation. Cool. Okay. All right. So that's it in terms of the content for tonight, guys. I'll make those I'll make that document available for you so you can have access to the charts. especially if you're feeding other people in your family. If you're just feeding yourself, then there won't be any need for those charts just yet. But if you're feeding others, like for example, children, especially husbands, they can fend for themselves, I guess. But if we're feeding children, then what I found, so my son is celiac, my 9-year-old, and so what I found is that by focusing on the proteins and fats first, and then giving him the option to have toast afterwards, versus him wanting to have toast for breakfast, sandwiches in his lunchbox, toast when he gets home from school, toast before he goes to bed, like trying to remove that from his diet would create a fight with it between us or within himself, which I didn't want to create. And so I chose to go down a route where he first needed to eat the proteins and the fats, and then he had the option to eat the toast or the other things if he wanted to afterwards, if he still felt like it. Without my intervention, he is able to self-regulate because he's not going into that situation lacking. Okay, so naturally those things are lowered. And then obviously, if you've got the list of things, if you know that your kid's digestive system is impaired, and I would go so far as to say that the reason why a lot of kids are struggling with eczema, those kinds of skin conditions and things like that, is that initially when babies are born, the gut is still open, right? Which is why only milk, do you know how fatty breast milk is?
Yeah, sugary
Yep.
too.
So it's predominantly like the fat to protein ratio is completely different than to say cow's milk, right? And so the lining is still open, which is why you don't, which is why we don't want to feed kids too soon, right? And then their exposure to gut bacteria as they pass through the vaginal canal, if they even did, even if they even were birthed vaginally, then determines the microbiome that is now the child's starting microbiome, right? It was the mother's. And so if the mother's wasn't particularly awesome, then that's the beginning that the child starts with, which means that kids start with leaky gut naturally. And then as it's closing, what are the first foods that are being introduced?
Fruit.
Oxalates, phytic acid. Yeah, anti-nutrient foods into a gut that is still open. Yeah. So it's it's very, very, very interesting.
Can I ask a question about acne? I've got a 14-year-old grandson living with us, and is acne a sign of anti-nutrients in the diet, do you think?
So it's more, it's definitely a sign that digestive health is impaired somewhere. And if digestive health is impaired, then that means gut bacteria balance is impaired. And if gut bacteria balance is impaired, then the ability to break down those anti-nutrients is impaired. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so quite often even just the strain that puts on the digestive system, on the liver, for example, is a real problem. So the liver is got so much to do that it then will say to the skin, "Hey, skin, help me out. I need you to take some of this load. I can't work through this all. This is what I can deal with. That's not a priority for me. Can you deal with it?" And the skin's like, "Yeah, sure, I can deal with that." And so then it gets pushed out through the skin.
So the hormonal changes that happen at puberty, is that complicating it?
It definitely does contribute. It does contribute to it. So ideally, we want waste to pass through the gut. To pass through the bowels. We don't want that is the you can't see my body. Sorry, you can't see me. That's the natural progression of waste, right? It goes like you eat and then it passes through and then moves out through the bowels, right? So the most efficient way for your body to get rid of wastes quickly is out of the bowels, or you vomit, right? a period is how women's bodies can choose to deal with an overload, a toxic overload. So very common in women who have polycystic ovaries, ovarian syndrome, or endo, or any of those kinds of hormonal things, is that the toxins get so accumulated for one of the contributors will be anti-nutrients, but it places such a load on the liver that the body with a female has the option to say, hey, skin, can you deal with this? But hey, also, can we just store this in the lining, so that when you bleed, it's using it as an opportunity for you to offload all that stored waste that has been accumulating for the last 20, however long your cycle is, days, and then you'll bleed. And so a lot of the time when girls at that young age are having problems with their menstrual cycle and are highly symptomatic, whether it be skin or whether it be with pain or with those syndromes, it's what's the diet like when teens are, going through puberty?
There's cravings for girls, isn't there? Like cravings for chocolate when you have your period. I remember that.
Yeah, but it's the
Sweet
worst
thing.
time too, because there's this balance of like what you can tell them to do versus what they have the freedom to choose. So in their teens, they're way less under our thumb. They've got way more control and freedom of choice to choose what they put in their body. There's only so much control that you have over what what a 3-year-old would eat. There's more control over what you have, say, a 9-year-old to eat, because they're still in your house. They're still, and their ability to negotiate is there, and so you can reason more with a 9-year-old. But dealing with a teenager who's going through puberty is like dealing with a 3-year-old. Just no negotiation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's also the worst time nutritionally. So the environment's highly inflammatory. They're eating a lot of anti-nutrients, and I'm not necessarily talking about anti-nutrients that come from plants either.
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. So I'll leave that there. And I'll put the recording up tomorrow, and I'll also get Jasmine's asked the question. Can it be any, or do they need to be raw and unprocessed? Sorry, Jasmine, I've missed the context of that question.
I think that was when we were doing the soaking and sprouting.
Oh, yeah, raw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. All right, guys. Well, you're doing well. Keep up in the group if you've got anything that you need me to address in real time. Otherwise, have
Thanks,
a great week. Okay. See you guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.